I have a lot of admiration for Ben. But he was coming on my show a lot when I was very pro-Israel's right to defend itself after October the 7th. And we were texting each other quite regularly. But when I became more critical, at the start of last year in particular and through last year, about the scale of Israel's response and what I perceive to be the disproportionality and so on, he just stopped coming on and then stopped replying to any messages of mine. Completely froze me out.
Hello, buddy. Welcome to the Based Network. I'm your host, Israel Popular. And today we have... Dude, this video was triggering me. I'm not even gonna lie. I stopped it and I didn't even watch through the whole thing. And I was like, I gotta record a video right now to show you. Enough introduction, just watch.
What's your view of Candace? I mean, my view, for what it's worth, I've had her on Uncensored many times. I know her a little bit away from the camera. She's unbelievably smart. She's a brilliant debater. She's compelling. She's great on camera, all of these things. But I've watched her in the last couple of years drifting to a place where I really, really have reservations about whether she believes half the stuff that she's putting on her show. You know, whether it's Brigitte Macron being a man or all the Charlie Kirk stuff or whatever it may be. I do think she's now gone down a path of deliberately promoting conspiracy theories for cash. What is your assessment?
Well, the problem with trying to wield cynicism for clicks is that cynicism ultimately wields you. And I think that's true of a lot of the sort of mistakes that we make in life. We always think that we're too clever for the sort of, the sort of evil that exists in the world to ever touch us. I've asked Candace on 2 separate occasions what she actually believes. On both occasions, she said, I believe what the people believe. I am the voice of the people. And of course, both times, I don't know what that means, Candace. I've come to understand, though, at least from my point of view, I think she's articulating the idea of audience capture and expressing it as a positive value. Does she actually believe the things that she's saying? I don't know. I do know that if you say things long enough, you come to believe them. The most convincing voice in the world is our own voice. To your point, though, Candace is a genuine superstar. I mean, she has it, the thing that we talk about in show business. She has it in spades. I've never met anybody with any more of it. The camera absolutely loves her. To your point, she's whip smart. When she's using those powers in service of the true and the good and the virtuous, I think there's nobody better. But like you, I'm very concerned about the direction that she's taking it right now.
We've got a little mashup of things she said about the Daily Wire and about Ben. Let's take a look at this.
Commentary that is coming from Daily Wire management, Daily Wire commentators regarding things that I've said, positions that I have, or just appearances that I am making. And, you know, I would like to really leave the Daily Wire in the rearview mirror. Like when you break up with someone and you have a crazy ex, that was how it felt like being fired from the Daily Wire. Andrew Klavan of the Daily Wire released a 1-hour video, essentially accusing me of many things, but referring to me as anti-Semitic, trying to link me to Nick Fuentes. This one is so fully off of the mother effing plantation. Truly, Ben Shapiro, fuck you and the midget horse that you rode in on. And I say that on behalf of the world.
What's your feeling when you hear that?
Well, she says it on behalf of the world, so it must be true. Listen, it's funny to hear Candace, who will do literally now over 50 episodes on the Charlie Kirk assassination, talk about other people fixating. This is, it's ridiculous. Candace is very good at what she does. She makes very compelling television. And
it's interesting. I mean, she fell out with Ben primarily over Israel. I've had an interesting experience with Ben because when I was at CNN, we had a famous, notorious run-in on air that helped make him actually in a way. He was, to his supporters, he took me down, and it became a big viral thing, and people keep sending it to me now, and so on. I've watched his rise then from a very young guy, very sort of firebrand young conservative commentator, to somebody who is, one of the most dominant figures in this space in the world. There's no question about that, and I have a lot of admiration for Ben. But he was coming on my show a lot when I was very pro-Israel's right to defend itself after October the 7th. And we were texting each other quite regularly. But when I became more critical, at the start of last year in particular and through last year, about the scale of Israel's response and what I perceive to be the disproportionality and so on, he just stopped stopped coming on and then stopped replying to any messages of mine. Completely froze me out. And I've had no more contact with him. And so a little part of me is like, Ben's, he's brilliant and he's a fantastic proponent for free speech. But where does that sit if you do criticize Israel? I've never criticized Jewish people. I'm not remotely anti-Semitic. I think he probably knows that. But I do believe I have a right to criticize the Israeli government when they're waging a war of the kind they've been waging in Gaza. Now, regardless of whether you agree with me about that, it doesn't really matter. I'm surprised that he's cut me off like this. And I don't really understand it other than he has a little bit of a blind spot about Israel when it comes to the free speech debate.
Yeah, I mean, you see it there, clearly. Obviously, I want to start off this reaction by saying, like, I don't support everything Candace Owens does, but she's an individual, and she can talk about whatever she wants. And it's very important to remember all the other stuff with Charlie Kirk, all the other stuff with him being a space-traveling alien or whatever. I don't remember the whole conspiracy theory at this point, or Brigitte Macron and all that stuff. I don't know if any of that is true, okay? I don't really care enough to go and look into all of that. I think with Charlie Kirk, the assassination was a little suspicious. I was on the camp that, it could have just been the guy who killed him, and then, obviously people are going to conspirize about what happened. And then, Erica Kirk's reaction to everything and the way she talks about it, and then especially that leaked audio where she was dead ass, like, $20 million freaking dollars, let's go! Like, right after he died, like, just flexing his merch sale. $22 million in 3 fucking hours! $22 million in 3 fucking hours! Just straight up freaking money spreading. Just flexing. Just like, $20 million! Let's go! Let's go! Wow! And he's dead. He's just straight up dead. And she's cheering on about all the money they made on merch sales. But regardless of all that, we have to remember that she got removed from the Daily Wire for criticizing Israel. No other reason. No other reason other than criticizing Israel. And Piers Morgan says it perfectly fine. He says it perfectly. When he was pro-Israel, Ben Shapiro was ready to go on his show, ready to talk to him. The second you criticize Israel, blocked. Not speaking to you. Same thing happened to Patrick Bet-David. When Patrick Bet-David, again, he literally had Benjamin Netanyahu, modern-day Hitler, on his show. And then he has Nick Fuentes on his show. Whatever you think about Nick Fuentes, he's definitely not as bad as Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't care what you say. Then after that, Ben Shapiro was supposed to go on PBD's show, but then he canceled. And then he ghosted him. Because Ben Shapiro, right, all the conversation about free speech is so important, debate is so important, facts don't care about your feelings being so important. For Ben Shapiro, nothing is more important than Israel. Nothing. And he will throw away all of his principles to support and bolster Israel's job. And what is Israel trying to do? Annex the West Bank, annex the Gaza Strip, and create a Jewish supremacist state in Israel. And be the global hegemon in Israel. He wants America to fight in Iran. He wants America to continue to give money to Israel because he is not America first, he is Israel first. And he does not care about debate, free speech, any of these things. He only cares about it as long as he's able to say what he believes. But if you try to criticize Israel, you're done, you're done, you're done. And there's also stories, too, with Candace Owens, where Candace Owens claims that Ben Shapiro sent somebody to a TPUSA event, a women's event, to go in and try to record Candace Owens saying something bad. Constantly harassing her. Now, do I know if that's true 100%? No. Would I doubt it? Absolutely not. Based on Ben Shapiro's actions. Absolutely, I wouldn't doubt it. But let's continue. Let's see what Jeremy Boring, very funny name, let's see what Jeremy Boring has to say. He's going to go and talk about the Pendragon cycle or some bullshit.
Well, I think Ben's been a great champion of freedom of speech. Of course, Ben, as probably the most famous religious Jew on earth, has very strong opinions about Israel. And, I can't speak to him not texting you back or appearing on the show during that period of time. And I haven't been in daily contact with Ben in the last 10 months because of leaving the Daily Wire and all the changes that have happened as a result of that. But I can say that I think one might understand why when so many voices in the media have gone so far in their, quote unquote opposition to Israel, which was a very thin veneer on actual anti-Semitism. And I think as time has gone on, we see what's behind that mask more and more from so many people in public life. One can imagine that it's very difficult to hear nuance when nuance itself is being sort of weaponized as a way of masking actual anti-Semitism by so many.
But isn't that ultimately what the whole free speech debate comes down to? It's the ability to listen.
And you have to realize he just gave up the game. He just gave up the game right there. They weaponize nuance to attack Israel. So, first things first, we have to realize this. The biggest proponents of anti-Semitism are people like this, who literally use Jewish people as human shields to block all criticism for their secular Jewish state of Israel. Okay? It has nothing to do with Judaism. It is a Jewish supremacist state in the Middle East that has been created by the Rothschilds, by America, and by Zionists. They use Jewish identity, they use Jewish struggle as a shield to block all criticism. And he gave up the game there. He says they use nuance to attack. And this reminds me so much of the conversations I had in the past where, like, obviously, like, for example, where someone will force you, they'll be like, I remember my parents are big Zionists. They were like, you have to watch this October 7th footage, right? And I watched the footage, and it was absolutely terrifying, and it was evil. And I remember watching that footage, and that's what actually got me super interested in this topic. Because I was like, how can this even happen? And it was so depraved. So then they'll show you that video. Okay, I understand. That struggle, that is what happened. It's evil. But then I'll show you a video of a Palestinian father holding the dead carcass of their child with their head blown up from a 50-pound bomb. Forgot about the swear jar. Here's $20, okay? I curse all the fuck I want this video. And then they'll go in, they'll say, oh, that's propaganda. Well, I say that's not propaganda. That's a propaganda at what the fuck is going on in the Gaza Strip. And he said it, and it's such a Freudian slip. He doesn't even understand how much this reveals. That statement reveals. It's just very sad. Very sad. Let's keep going.
It's the ability to listen and tolerate people's views you don't like, even if you find them hateful. There is nothing I've ever said which could be remotely construed as anti-Semitic or any dislike or hatred of Jewish people. And he knows that. He really doesn't want to engage with me at all simply because I became more critical of the Israeli government. And I think that's inconsistent with his stance about free speech.
Well, I don't think it's inconsistent with a broad support for free speech to not engage with people who say things that you don't like. It's free speech says that you have the right to say it. It doesn't say that I have the obligation to continue to engage with you when you do say it. So I'd be careful about that. But then, of course, we're getting into fairly personal territory here where only Ben could speak for himself. I would only again point out that I think that over the last few years, a lot of people have said, I'm only criticizing Israel. Don't I have the right to criticize a foreign government? Which, of course, you do have the right to criticize a foreign government in your own government or any government. But because that was used as a kind of Trojan horse by so many who have since exposed real anti-Semitism, one can imagine that if you were in the position of Ben Shapiro or other very prominent Jewish figures in the political debate, that would be a tough thing to hear when it's been weaponized by so many.
Facts don't care about your feelings, okay? Facts don't care about your feelings. Isn't that the motto? And this is another thing, too, because anti-Semitism is on the rise. And it is a problem. You just go on Twitter, go on Instagram, you'll see it for yourself. But they don't understand that they are the number one proponents of anti-Semitism. And it's an argument they know, and they're doing it maliciously. They're being inconsistent maliciously. Because Ben Shapiro is probably the greatest orator for this specific argument. When it came to Black Lives Matter, Ben Shapiro was doing tricks on it. Doing double backflip, glurping up, slurpy cup, all over Candace Owens. Why? Because she was a black person criticizing black people about behavior and crime and talking about police brutality in a very strategic, numbers-based way, void of all feelings. And he loved that. He was like, let's go, Candace Owens. Let's have you come and destroy the Black Lives Matter narrative. Great. Because facts don't care about your feelings. And I don't have racial loyalty to black people because I can criticize them all I want for things that they do, right? And I can criticize other groups for what they do because we're just talking facts. And the conservatives eat that slop up constantly. And I wouldn't even call it slop. I think it's just fair to be like, let's void our emotions here. Let's talk about situations base by base, a case-by-case basis. But the second it goes to Israel, all of Ben Shapiro's morals right out the window. Why? Because he's an emotional. Because he doesn't care about facts. He cares about feelings. And this is why people do not respect Ben and why he is losing so much support. He's bleeding support. He's bleeding support constantly because people see the hypocrisy. And they say, hey, you were the guy who was out here talking about facts, don't care about your feelings. But the second your personal in-group gets attacked, oh my God, time to bust out the violin. That's why no one respects Ben. And no one respects this Jeremy Boring loser either. Because he even DM'd Candace and said, we were not going to remove you for political differences. And then Ben Shapiro comes out here and is like, well, I have no control over who gets fired or who doesn't. It's like, really, bro? Really? Let's continue.
Is that what you feel like? I don't know. Again, I can't speak to it.
Yeah, no, listen, I don't expect you to speak for him about it. I was just curious because I know Candace fell out with him over the issue of Israel. And I think she has said things which are certainly borderline, could be construed as anti-Semitic. So I think it's a different situation. But I'll leave her to have that argument with him. Did you fall out with Ben at all?
Real quick, right? You could say that maybe now. Maybe now you can say that when she's talking about Frankists and all this stuff. Fine. Make your argument, okay? I'm not going to stop you from making your argument. But at the time, you have to remember, at the time, the craziest thing she said, the craziest thing she talked about was the fact that they were killing babies in Gaza. And you have to put it into perspective as well. It was right after she just had her, third kid? I never had a kid before. My buddy just had a kid about a year ago, and I can tell the difference. Like, for example, in this whole Jeffrey Epstein situation, which Ben Shapiro also likes to deny because it implicates his perfect little country. He was super emotional about the situation. Why? Because he has a kid. He has a child. And that makes complete sense. My sister, who has a kid, can't even watch a movie about a kid getting kidnapped because it emotionally affects her too much. Now, imagine Candace Owens, who just had a kid, just had a baby, and then she's going online and seeing babies being murdered. And then the entire GOP establishment is just like, yes, let's go. Death to more Palestinians. Because that's the real double standard here. Right? Because Randy Fine, his fat ass, and I have the fat ass pass, okay? I can call people fat asses. His fat ass, in a diabetic coma, is able to come out and go, we should kill all Palestinians. They're not human. Essentially, that's basically what he says. And there's no problem there. But imagine Ilhan Omar came out and was like, we should wipe the Gaza Strip. I mean, we should wipe Israel. There will be bloodshed in Tel Aviv. Imagine she said something like that. What would happen? I don't even need to tell you what would happen. You know. There's a huge double standard. And I guarantee you, if Candace Owens was saying the exact same thing she said about Israel or Jewish people, and she said it about Muslims, she would still have an entire parade of dick suckers in the Daily Wire glazing her shit up. Because there's a huge double standard. And that's abundantly clear. And I'm a Christian. I have no dog in this fight, but it's abundantly clear.